Axons Unleashed.
So, ladies and gents, here we are. I'm just taking over from Robbie Turner. We've got a bit of in-play coming in.
Yo, welcome to Axons Unleashed. You fucking know it. Woohoo!
Coming at you raw and wild.
All right, let's just keep rolling. This is part 2.
That's basically what happens when Robbie when Robbie just showed me some buttons on the keyboard.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. I want silence.
Love it.
Right, thank you.
Luckily, when bloody people are watching us, they won't be pressing this one. You. All right. Hey, mate, I love the first part of the podcast there. It was so, as I said to you just in the little intermission we had, I've loved learning about your personality, your background, why you joined the military, and you would agree, some sort of never before heard stories about you. So I'm really glad that our listeners are getting to know the man, the myth, the legend, coming to you from live and uninterrupted from here at downtown Surface Paradise. Right. So we're 1998. You got through Commando selection. I spoke a heap about that during my podcast. And I guess, is there any sort of points you want to bring on about that? What was?
No, I mean, when I say no, I mean, the selection course, I get asked a lot of questions about it. So feel free to send me a DM about it. There are people out there who are now making a living on, no pun intended then, but, they've got professional, guidance packages and stuff. And also there's a lot online. So all I will say that if you are particularly interested, to start is to start. So I get frustrated with people who proliferate, about when they should do it and what they should do. If you want to give it a fucking crack, train, give it a crack, get online, speak to the appropriate people about it or whatever. Certainly if you run into a problem or anything like that about it on any of the selection courses and you want to have a chat, then reach out to someone, through their, whether it's myself or someone else, I don't care, but, reach out to them in their media and hopefully we can help you steer on your right path. But other than that, it's really just fucking doing it. You know?
I mean, you and I saw many Commando selection courses go, as we were bouncing up and down through the ranks there. I guess what the bit of tip that I would pass on is look after yourself while you're training. Don't start the course with a niggly injury because it will be exposed very, very quickly and then you'll find yourself up shit creek and then you're all the way back to square one. So take care of yourself while you're training. So, mate, you finished your Commando training, and then sort of, what happened? What was the next major milestone that you can sort of remember there as we speak about your time down at Holsworthy for about 20 minutes? We're going to talk about 15 years in 20 minutes. Give us the highlights, mate.
Yeah. Well, I think the next thing that's happened, was specialist courses. So even more courses after you finish the selection course. And I think, I did a fair few of them, but one that I really enjoyed doing was the climbing course, where we went down the Arapiles. We climbed down there for 2 or 3 weeks. And again, for the listeners, just to quickly quantify, when I say climb, we're talking the level that we go to on that course is lead climbing. So, leading up a unclimbed climb.
Like a fucking Yama, a mountain.
Yeah. And, putting the protection and stuff in, and we have to do that, with body armor on, armed, as in, we don't carry a full, as in a normal weapon, we just carry a small, like a MP5 or something like a
so this is not like adventure training. This is tactical, war zone sort of stuff.
And that's my point I'm making. And we have to do that by night on night vision goggles. That's your terminal climb. And I tell you what, when I watch some of these sport climbers out there, and I'm sure everyone's seen people climb, and you see now the what's the climbing where they race you at the Olympics? It's sport. That is sport climbing, is it?
Yeah, I'm not sure what it's called, but
fucking fast climbing.
Yeah, where they go fucking horrifically thing. They climb 20 meters. What you got to understand is all those climbs are top roped, and what that means is if you fall, you fall back a certain distance, but basically, you're assured. Your safety is assured the whole time, whereas when you are lead climbing, you're putting in your protection, and if at any stage you fall back to that last piece of protection you put in. And of a night time, putting protection in with the era of, as in the generation of goggles that we had back then, being the fidelity and everything that provided, was fucking horrific.
Terrible. Yep.
So the short story was, I was on my terminal climb. And I'd finished one already that night, or whatever it was on the night before, and I was on to another one. And And I remember I just burnt out, and I was on a double pitch, which means, most ropes are 50 metres. So after you've climbed that, you've got to then reset up another point and climb again. So it means you're climbing up over 100 metres. Anyway, I remember doing the second part, and my hands were just pumped, and I was like, and I couldn't see, the night vision goggles were fogging up. I was getting extremely fatigued, and been climbing non-stop now for 3 weeks. So you got all little bits of plaster and stuff on your hands, holding your fingers together and whatnot. And I just remember going, fuck it. The only way I'm going to get out of here now is to just fucking climb. Like, I'm not stopping. I'm not putting any protection in or whatever. And, so I did that for, I don't know, it was another couple of bounds, another several metres, and basically then come off and fell. But there was a little rock ledge there that caught me. Otherwise, I'm not saying this in a morbid sense, but like the reality is I would have fucking died for sure, because I would have fell,
too far.
Yeah.
Yep.
And plus the stress factor on those pieces of protection, then they can start pull out. Obviously, the higher the fall is, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, but that was probably not, or maybe my next highlight, but I fell and I broke my coccyx. And I remember lying there on the ledge, and this is probably when I was like, all out of all the things I've been through and all the training you've done, you're now actually in the fucking big boys pool. Because I was on the radio and they're like, H, what do you want to do? We'd have to like wait an hour or so to get a chopper in to get you off that ledge or whatever. And I just remember lying there, and I was in a fuck ton of pain. Like, I broke my coccyx, took my coccyx off, and I looked up and had like, I don't know, it was 30, 40 metres or something to the top. And I said, leave it with me. I'm going to climb out. And they're like, can you'd be right? And I was like, I'll climb out. And I just fucking climbed the rest of the way, noting that I'd already fallen with no pro. I never put a single fucking protection in, which I'm not bragging about. It's not smart. It was basically a one-way death mission. If I fell from them, but I was like, the only way I was going to get out of there was climbing. I remember coming down off that mountain, like hobbling back down, because you can walk down a much gentler slope, on the other opposite sides. And I remember coming back down the bottom, and the boys were just standing there, and they're just like, fucking, just looking at each other, shaking each other's head. Yeah.
How? Yeah.
And I was just like, well, just a bit of a shoulder shrug. But I remember looking back at that time, in that moment, just going, like, this is the fucking real deal. As in, you can lie around here and, but now you've done selection, you've done all these things. And that's, what I used to say to guys. I was actually the wing sergeant major on the selection course for years. And I'd say, mate, the selection course, when they're absolutely fucked and about to spit their dummy, I'm like, mate, this is the easiest fucking thing you're going to do. Like, as far as like being in the unit and all the operations, and everyone here right now at the table is fucking nodding, but you're not facing any real danger.
You're in a controlled environment. You're just doing selection.
I'm like, this is the easiest fucking thing you can do, because after that,
at that time and in that moment, it feels as though it is the toughest and the hardest thing. And
of course,
having that realization, that mindset. Unfortunately, they don't tell you that beforehand, or they don't necessarily teach you. They run it as though this is the hardest, but when you get out there, very relevant.
Yeah. Hey, tell me, when 9/11 happened, where were you? What were your thoughts?
9/11, I was standing in the mess hall in Timor, and I just grabbed a feed. I can't remember what we just come back from, some patrol. And I remember sitting there and going, just looking at the TV screen, just, with a feeling that it was surreal, and you just had to watch it. And anyone listening will remember, it was on repeat, all those different images, and I think you literally needed to sit there and see it so many times for like a fucking hour to go, like, fuck, for it to actually sink in. Then I remember even then driving back, it was up at wherever the headquarters was, I can't remember.
Ballabo or something?
Ballabo, yeah. And then we were up at Bobonara, and I remember there was been a couple of hour drive home or whatever it was. And I remember driving back to the base, as in where Bravo Company was, and it was just this feeling that I really can't describe. But one thing I knew, and I don't mean this, I mean this in the most respectful way I can say it, but I fucking tell you now, no word of a lie, I did sit there and think like right, because now we are fucking on. I didn't know what was going to be unleashed in the world. I didn't know how it was going to play out, but I knew that I was going to get my fucking war, and that's what I wanted. Like, I just wanted to get heavily involved in, I always used to look at that Vietnam era, and then because of when I joined, there was a lot of post-Vietnam era, personalities, the senior guys in amongst the ranks. So that's what I refer to, our war is in. Right or wrong, I'm not getting into the politics. I'm not getting into the type of conflict. I'm not getting into fucking any of that. Okay, but for the soldiers who were serving, soldiers, sailors and airmen, who were serving in the Australian Defence Force at that time. And as I try and explain to people, most of those people, and I understand there were conscripts back then, most of those people want to serve. They want to deploy. Doing an operation is what they've joined for. So for me, sitting there after that happened, it most certainly sunk in the full weight of it all, as in, holy, this is a horrific thing. But I fucking knew right then and there that not only this is going to change the world, this is going to 100% change my life. And then ironically, it was that was September, obviously. It was about 8 weeks later, and they'd already made decisions about the raising the extra counter-terrorism capability. And then there was a heap of us got interviewed whilst in Timor. And then I got pulled home early from East Timor after being away 6 months. I think I was given a week or two at home. And then there was 35 of us, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, in the initial group of the hand-picked 2 Commando guys who were sent to then SASR to then go through a screening process, and then they sent over a couple more groups so that we all had different stages of experience and training and stuff, and then that was the formation of the Tactical Assault Group East.
Yeah, that's when the government said, righto, we can't just have a Tactical Assault Group sitting over in Perth. We need one sitting over in the Eastern Seaboard. So yeah, it's a cool story, man. Yeah, it's like you were on operations. I was like, I'm talking to you right now, and the NRL Grand Finals on Sunday this week, right? So we're talking like, what's it, 1st or 2nd of October right now. You guys are probably going to listen to this in about a month's time. And I'm like, you're playing first grade already. You're not in the bloody junior ranks anymore. You're not in the normal, you're not in the big blue one anymore. And no disrespect for that, but obviously you do work your way up from a capability perspective. But all of a sudden, you don't have to play the rest of the season, and you're playing the grand final now, and you're going to play the grand final every fucking year for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And that's going overseas into Afghan and going to that war, as you quite rightly say. And I know there were some Iraq trips in there as well for those that got a chance to go. So yeah, mate, it certainly would have raised the stakes, I reckon. And I wasn't in SOCOM when that happened. I was still up in Townsville, being a senior NCO. But certainly when I got down there, and then I eventually went across, as you know, Alpha Company went and deployed on SOTG 1 with Mick Lowe and the rest of the team there. So certainly I knew that my life had changed right then, and everything was going to be playing grand final like level sort of heightened of awareness.
Yeah, it was just a massive game changer. Like I look at that day, certainly for me, I put a lot of emphasis on that day, and the fact that it's only just passed, as in we've only just clicked over 1st of October on this recording date. On that day, I sit there and I just think of like just how much, both positively, and also other effects that it's had on my life. Like that fucking date means more. It doesn't mean more to me than Anzac Day, and I wouldn't frame it like that. But it's had a lot more of an effect. Anzac Day is Anzac Day, but for me personally, 9/11 has absolutely changed my life in so many ways, and in a lot of bad ways. Like it gutted the life, like a direct result, of components of what's happened with my family, which I won't go into details on this podcast. But just the changes, and just I actually like sitting back and seeing also the ripple effect of everything that happened. The growth of units. Yep. And different things like, I don't believe the Special Operations Engineer Regiment would have become the Special Operations Engineer Regiment, as in we just didn't have that.
There wouldn't have been a need.
That's
for
what
it.
I mean. That we needed to grow, whereas America had been involved in other conflicts and realised that they needed this jointness and blah blah blah. Anyway,
where were you, Simo?
There was certainly a catalyst for a lot of changes. I was actually. And SOA, Special Operations Engineer Regiment, prior to that was the Incident Response Regiment. Before that, it was IRU, and then GIRU before that again for the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics. But for me, we were actually up at Sunshine Coast, Coolum, I think it was, and we were doing searches for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting that was going to be held there very soon after that day. And we'd already deployed out of Sydney and headed up to there. We'd already done a bunch of searches with the dogs, a dog handler at that point in time. And, we woke up in the morning or whatever it was of the evening or late at night when it first happened. And all the TVs came on and it was just everywhere. And from there, obviously, or maybe not obviously, but the CHOGM meeting got cancelled and we were all recalled back home. And then, likewise, very soon after that, I was assisting with TAG East to raise our dog capability to support TAG East in their role as well.
Tell us, H, we've got Simo in the room here. Did you have some positive experiences, or what were your experiences like with the sort of EOD and MWD dogs over there?
I had so we're speaking specifically on the engineers on what got called the Special Operations Engineer Regiment, referred to it as SOA. I think they went through a steep learning curve, and I'll be extremely honest here. I think at the start, they had, we'd been developing things for a long time, and they had a lot of catch up to do. I'll give them absolute hats off and credit to them. They made that fucking catch up.
Totally.
But I do remember, and also with my personality at that time and the focus that I had on the mission, I was like, fuck me, these guys need to sort their shit out.
Yeah.
But that's of no fault of their own. They would only just, started and they were thrown in, and there was nothing special about them. They were thrown in to do or to be enablers, enhancers, and other specific capabilities they brought to the party for both SASR and 2 Commando force elements, whilst they're out actual conducting the actual special operation. Yeah. So I think in the early days, it was fucking clunky, to use another word. But again, to give them credit, they very much got to the place that we needed them to be, and where that they needed to be internationally recognised as a special operations engineer regiment, as opposed to some more fucking engineers.
It's always a really hard thing when you have like an add-on to the team. So you got the nucleus of the team. Everyone knows the TTPs. Everyone knows the specific roles that they need to play. Then a few weeks before, someone comes and bees a bolt-on, for one of a better term, and then they've got to get themselves up to speed, But because the last thing you want to do is having someone putting their hand up and go, "I'm out." You're like, "No, motherfucker, we're in the Badlands. There is no out. You can't put your hand up. This is not fucking Jumanji where you just bloody disappear."
That's actually
that's what you're protecting, isn't it, H? You didn't want to carry that liability, so you're like, sort your shit out, please, ladies and gents. And it's a natural evolution of any new capability that comes online. But to their credit, Dave, as H has said a few times, you guys performed some amazing fucking things for many SOTGs.
But it rolls directly into business as well, and to me that's really, really important. Is and if there was a stage when I can look back at myself when maybe I was where I was less mature, and I was just more or too focused and wouldn't possibly see the bigger or broader picture. So when you look at training people, because that's why I wanted to come back to this point, because to me, I love and enjoy the challenge of training people. I love and enjoy the challenge of growing people in any fucking environment. And that's why I always like to, it's good for us to sit around the table and talk this military stuff, but to me it's also especially important for some of that to be translated into how could you use some of the components or theories that we're talking about in your business or your work. And the point I'm making is if you have someone come in and you need them to provide X amount, or you need them to provide a whatever their job role function is within your organisation, then it fucking totally 110% behoves you to put everything that you can into that person and to invest into them to make them the best version of what they can be in that job role function. Because hey, guess fucking what? If you don't, who's it coming back onto? Your business. Now, you can all sit there and nod your heads and go, well, that's fucking obvious. But do you know the amount of people out there that don't invest in their people, and in fact, when they fuck up or get something wrong, berate them or ostracize them or do this? I see it every day still.
Wow.
And it's all that is doing is lessening their effectiveness or optimization in your fucking business, and you're paying for them. I mean, how fucking retarded are you?
Yeah.
So to me, it went through a stage where, I would absolutely grill guys, as in operators in the unit, when they would fucking say any pun about any support staff guy or any other enabler, whether it's a fucking, a joint terminal attack controller coming down from, the Air Force, whether it was this guy, whether it was that guy. Because I'm like, hey, if we don't get these guys up to the level we need them to, and especially the guys coming outside the wire with us, because there'd be lots of people attached to us, for the listeners who wouldn't actually go out on the operation. They're back, inside a base, but they're helping us and we need them, but they're not out on the ground where the dangers and risks are obviously exponentially higher. And it was like, you need to invest in these people. We need to stop walking around like, hey, I'm the fucking operator here, and you need to bring them well inside that team, and you need to teach them and show them as much as you fucking can. I know a guy sitting back here not doing anything when we're down the range, put them in the fucking team, put them in the range, throw them in a helicopter, throw them back at the back of the plane, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why I wanted to make that point about that correlation between that and and business and real world.
Yeah, I actually think those comments are extremely accurate and fair, man. SOA, when it first was raised, was gyro back in the day for the Olympic Games in 2000.
Joint Incident Response.
Yeah, Joint Incident Response Unit. So we came from regular army at that point in time. We didn't have a selection at that point in time because it wasn't SOCOM. We weren't SOCOM, Special Operations Command. So everyone coming in there was selected to be, because they were the better of the better at that point in time, but not a specific selection. It wasn't until many years later that we actually started creating our own selection course, which by no means is nothing compared to what the Commando or the SAS
Didn't need to be, mate. It just needs to be capability specific to close that gap that Hayes was talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. But at that point in time, like Hayes said as well, we were going outside the wire with them. Mm-hmm. So when TAG East was raised and we were operating with them, then we did need to have that capability raised within ourselves as well. Man, that comment you just made there also about the business side of it as well. I think that's extremely accurate into how we actually operate within Axon Property Group. If we find a gap in training or a gap in operations when someone is doing something, then we're extremely flexible and able to identify those things and then implement training to bring those people up without belittling them, without making them feel bad. Just highlight the gaps and then implement training to.
We've got someone sitting here right now. Like, it's a perfect segue. This is something I wanted to talk to you about, Adam. Like. And I know you spent some time down in SOCOM and you've experienced and witnessed all the stuff that Simo, H and myself are talking about. But how long were you in training for? So you'd already gone through the whole process, built an investment property with us, clearly not an idiot. You knew what you were doing. You were being kept, like, your levels of awareness were really, really high, but your level of involvement was really low. And then you come and put an Axon shirt on. And then how long was your training regime before effectively you were deemed competent and then you could go and talk to clients without any supervision?
Well, it's hard to say, it's hard to quantify, because at the end of the day, I'd already done training by being a client. So I was already a warm start. And I think, if you're turning that round into regular Army SOCOM terms, I'd done my Army time and now I was coming into SOCOM. So I
love that. Well done.
Yeah, it's good.
You can stay.
I can stay. I've earned another week. But I think at the end of the day, I definitely came in and started training under yourself, Robbie, and with Damo. And then we sort of changed things up, changed our capability bricks, and I went across and became a property specialist under Simo. And that in itself, that change was integral to our training platform, because we're all property specialists working in the same area now, and we're all doing the same thing day in, day out. We see everyone's moves and we see exactly what we're doing. So our output is exactly the same now. So our training was, 6 months.
Have you loved the training continuing that you've been along, like all the stuff that H is talking about?
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. It's been really, really good, and I think there's nothing like getting in there and doing the real time stuff, which is exactly the same as what we're talking about. Through SOCOM, everything like that. That real deal post 9/11, getting out there, talking to clients, doing everything like that. It's that real deal.
I always like to ask, and you haven't had an opportunity to speak much today, and that's just the way it crumbles. But I always like to ask everybody this question. You just caught me then with it. So if you could improve it. Because, this is, and, Robbie's here, he's running the show. I think it's always good if we ask ourselves that question. So if you look back, what's something that Robbie can improve when he brings the next lot in or does the next training continue?
Be nice, please. No, fucking rip in, mate.
I actually don't know. I really, really don't, because I wouldn't change anything I've done. I think the platform that we have and the ability and the fact that we've changed the way we've done, our capability bricks, we do that every day. And Simo will attest. I call him up on everything, even when I was on my second day. Asking the whys, doing all that sort of stuff. I don't think there's anything that we can change in our training continuum, because we have the platform there already. The I's, the T's will change. The numbers will change integrally. But the training platform from that mentality doesn't need to change. So I don't think there is anything.
It's not just a bunch of veterans doing shit. It's a real military style business that we run. Everything is got a SOP, everything's got a flow chart, everything's got a rank structure involved as well, but we all fucking call each other.
Simo's got a template for everything.
Yeah, that's right.
The really good, if you didn't pick it up, the really good chestnut out of that there, or the little gold nugget is, so, when you're running a business or running anything, whether you're fucking running your own life, because we all have to do that, or sometimes we do.
Yep.
Anyway, sometimes we need to be adults. Is if you constantly evolve something and you constantly improve it, no matter how small or incrementally, but you make note of that incremental improvement and acknowledge it within the team or at the lowest denomination, even within yourself, and you constantly do that through the cycle. And that's why we just got the answer we just got. And again, that was not fucking rehearsed whatsoever. Because when it's constantly ticked off and, threaded into the cycle and our processes and our procedures and whatnot, then there never becomes this fucking clunk. And the clunk, the difference I'm talking about is when you go to that work meeting with whatever, job role function you've got in whatever business organisation, it does not matter. And you go to that meeting and everyone's sitting there and there's a fucking elephant in the room because it's been there a month and people are pissed off because there's something that's not happening and not happening, effectively or efficiently, or someone's not listening and the change hasn't been made for whatever reason, but it's affecting every person there and it's affecting core outputs every fucking day, and they don't change it. And they won't change it. And then when you drop it, that's what I mean about the clunk, it's like this little fucking bomb that just happened in the room, or the white elephant, or whatever analogy you want to use, that should have never occurred at all, because we should all always be about constant improvement and optimization. Yep. But again, it bewilders me the amount of places that will let such small little things just fucking develop into this, big thing. If you get a splinter in your hand and you leave it in there, turns pussy, gets infected, whatever.
Yep.
Cut that thing out that day, and then it's gone.
Yep. Hey, I know that we just sort of transitioned into business stuff, but let's just finish off your story, H. So, what year did you transition?
I had to think about it. Can I use the cricket's noise?
Yeah. That is a massive. Go for it, mate.
So I got out in my actual discharge date was December 2014.
After how many years?
Just short of 25, so 24 and a bit.
How many operational tours?
I think 10 or 11 in total.
Lots. Yep.
So importantly, 2014, most of 2014, I wasn't, actively serving is the best way to put it. I wasn't in a mental hospital. I'm saying is I had literally 300 and something days of fucking leave, and I still got paid out. As in, I had to get a 2-star general to waiver, the amount of leave I had on my last deployment. But again, we won't talk about that. I'll get another letter from the Chief of the Army. I guess with my and speaking about transition, and the reason I actually asked Robbie if we could talk about this for a minute, not just for the veteran listeners, but for anyone who does a major transition from one thing in their life, because there's a reason with high performance people and also just other people, but in particular why high performance people fall so hard. How many times have you seen a football player after he shifts team or gets out of this in the news, and there he is, he's in a misdemeanor, generally involving some drugs, generally involving some young females, and generally involving some alcohol, because these are all coping mechanisms that are used, and when they are depended upon and used in the incorrect way, they'll soon fast send you off track. So back onto my transition and some points about that. So I had nothing short, when I look back, as in I should not have got out when I got out. So my last deployment was just over 13 months. I came home 3 times in that 13 months, 2 for funerals, 1 for Cam Baird's funeral, 1 for Hans Fleer's funeral, who was the honorary colonel of the 2 Commando Regiment, and 1 to be charged for some disciplinary matters that caught up with me. So when I look at that, and then I've come home after that long deployment, and immediately, and this is where when you look at red flags, immediately I've decided to leave my beloved family. Immediately I've decided to leave the unit and the army, and then basically I'm just out there on the street. Now I made those choices, but certainly the point I'm making is we need to have those catches in place, and it's something that I talk about a lot, and that's happening now with some of the inquiries that are occurring. That the transitioning component is one of the most dangerous spaces for people, and again I emphasise it's not just we're not just talking about military members getting out of service. You could be working in Qantas. Actually, I've got this particular case on of a friend of mine. So working for Qantas for like 20 odd years, and then left Qantas and worked for another organisation, which I'll be vague about to protect her identity. But the bottom line is, she worked in one particular area for an extended period of time. And that's what I'm saying. It's not just defence persons, and then went to another particular area. And there were a lot of issues that basically came to the surface. So it's because they're transitioning, because they're life changing. We're natural creatures and we get used to things, and we're creatures of habit. So when we take some of those comforts away, and I'm not talking physical comforts, it's a comfort to know to get up at 8 o'clock every morning and to walk into the office at this time and to do X, Y, Z. That's a fucking comfort. And in a lot of jobs, that's not afforded because they're a lot more random, or in a lot of lives or a lot of people or whatever, they don't have that comfort. So when we start taking and changing away these things, because we're creatures of habit, there's many things that start sort of breaking down, and also things that may not even be or appear, and that's why this is important for partners and stuff to hear this and realise this, because it may not even have anything to do with what's just occurred. But because of the change of circumstances, you've triggered off some other chemicals and some other dynamics in the body, or in the mind more importantly. So something that happened to you 15 years ago now just pops up.
It's literally happening to me right now. Remember, I spoke to you a few weeks ago. I'm like, man, I'm only just going through my PTSD stuff now from shit that happened 15 years ago. It always comes up at some stage.
And that's the key thing. What Robbie just said is there's also no time, as a good lead on, there's no time limit on it. So some people can transition, again, whether it's the military or whatever, or you worked at fucking Qantas or you worked for Cat Diesel Power at a mining site for 20 years. It doesn't matter. But when you move on from that, there's no time period either of how long it takes you to transition, or likewise, when we're talking about traumatic events, from when the traumatic event happens to when, you whether it starts to deal with it or cause you an issue to then trigger you to deal with it, or a bit of both, or you start using coping mechanisms and you don't know why, and then you're like, why am I being crazy because of this? So that could happen 3 months later. I've seen it 3 years later. I've seen it 13 years later. There is no fucking time limit on it. There is no textbook on these things. But
I tell you what, I've loved that. You're absolutely right, mate. But as a very, very proud veteran employer of myself, I employ myself. I think yes, I do. Actually, I looked.
Are you sure?
I asked the boss this morning what I should do, and I was having a shave in the mirror, so I knew what was going on today. But mate, I love having 9 other veterans in the business, and certainly, Simo, you've been able to transition straight from the military, into a nice little soft landing. Ad, you've sort of done the same, but as we're doing all of our coaching for all of our clients, we sort of get to a point that anyone's at about that 10-year mark. I'm like, hey, bro or sister, have you got a fucking plan in place? Because it's not if you get out, it's when you get out. Everyone's going to become a veteran at sort of some stage. And as you rightly point out, it can happen to the best of us. That hammer can drop very quickly, and all of a sudden you're not in the military anymore. Be that medical, be that admin, be that discipline, be that fucking whatever. So I guess there always needs to be a plan B in place. Like we do it all the time from a contingent planning perspective when we're in the military. Why not do it for your life? So we, trust the people in this room right now. It's coming from a place of love and care, and want to make sure that you guys and girls, when you do transition from the military, you have a plan in place. What are you doing with yourself now, though, mate? Tell us because you're very active on social media. You have a rants every now and then. You've got a great voice, and certainly you're standing up for a lot of veteran sort of stuff there. But like, what lights your fires at the moment? Tell me.
So I've got a particular large project, that I'm working on, and unfortunately at the moment I can't go into a lot of detail on that with commercial and confidence because it involves some investors and stuff. But I have a dream to create a space, not only for veterans but also for emergency services personnel. For unfortunate, children or children, who've come off their path, whether it be through something that's happened to them in their life or something that they've done. I'll probably leave it there. But there's a lot of work that's been going on, and that's sort of taking up a lot of aspect of the last sort of couple of months.
Amazing.
So
I love
that's
that.
pushed me off on a path, and what that'll do is the dream and what I wanted to do for a couple of different reasons, will now be 10 to 100 times larger, and will also come forward about 10 years' time. So that's actually what consumes a lot of my time. Most weeks, though, I go down to, I spend a couple of days on a horse property near Dayborough. So very,
Beautiful
very good.
part of the world.
Oh, beautiful part of the world. Beautiful. For those people who are not in Queensland and haven't been to Dayborough, frankly, it's
It's a northern semi-rural suburb. How many k's north of the city?
Yeah, what do you do? About half hour out of Brisbane, if the centre, about half hour out of the centre of Brisbane. For the military people, you're about 20 minutes or so from Minogra. But anyway, so I go down there. I do some work down there. One thing I've found and learnt the hard way with my personality type, because after I got to the military, I had a pretty high-fluting job. I was on some fairly serious money. I was working for a lot of very serious people all over the world, in the defence aerospace industry, working for a listed company, flying everywhere, business class, first class, and basically never still and never at home. And I did that for 2 years, and then I realised that was actually a coping mechanism for me. Because I need to be, but what that job did, was all it did was instigate and encourage some the continuation of other coping mechanisms that I was using at the time. So what I realised is what suits me best is to have surges of high activity, surges of high intensity, and I need to mix that up also with outdoor features, so to speak. So, for example, if you put me in an office space and ask me to work Monday to Friday there and burn 14 hours a day, you'll get that and you'll get fucking good results. In fact, I'll do 120 hours a week, right? But then after a month or so, I'm going to be AWOL for 3 days because I need a blowout, as I call it. So I need to blow off some gas, and it's not a healthy cycle for me. So what I prefer to do now is work bits and pieces in a couple of different environments, but I really, really prioritise my health and being and doing what makes me most happiness and what makes me most feel like that now. And I understand that's a little bit of a luxury, but it's also not, people, because I sacrifice other things as in income and certain things to be able to live that lifestyle, because I've been on the big money and had the affluent jobs and done this and done that. And what I find is a lot of those people are carrying a lot more stresses than other people. And again, that stresses lead to more continuation of coping mechanisms. And I've done a lot of research in regards to stress and sleep, and basically I can literally feel now fucking stress coming in my body. And if that's the case, I literally will go back out on the property, spend a few days over the horses.
The horses, connect with nature.
Yep, and then come back in and do a reset. But there's a couple other things that we're currently working on, which hopefully I'll be able to announce before Christmas, which again all sounds all cloak and dagger, but it's not really. It's just some commercial stuff. But yeah, really, really exciting. And other than that, I've honestly just trying, when I've got the time and effort to grow my brand, is in, I want people to understand, what it is, what Seven Horses Co. is, we're writing up those mission statements, and, as you might have heard the buzzword, I have, which is you are the investment, and that is helping people realise, and that's what we're starting to put in place, heap of strategies and growth mechanisms for that, of what does that mean to you, that you are the investment. And it comes back to everything that I just said, that you can put yourself as a second place, and you can invest. For example, if we look at yourself, Robbie, in Axon, and then what'll happen is there's no fucking Robbie to run Axon effectively. So people, you can create that, but then it's just going to be detrimental to actual you and your own health. So first and foremost, what I realise at my lowest is that you, and almost in a selfish way, and that's why it doesn't sit right with us, and that's why I say it to people, that you must be the investment first and foremost. Because if you're not well and optimised, your business can't be, your relationship can't be, your finances fucking won't be. It just goes downhill from there. So yeah, that's basically a summary.
Hey, that is such gold, and it all comes down to basically being able to transition and find your new purpose, find your new passion. That's why I said to you, what lights your fires right now, and it's certainly yelling at me through my bloody headphones right now that you love giving back to the veteran community. You know, the blokes like you and I, and you, Simo, as well, that joined very, very young, and respectfully, Adam, like when you have 20 plus years of service to that organisation and we're very institutionalised like we are, I don't know, you love it, Dave, giving back to the defence community. You talk to veterans and current serving members and their families every fucking day about what their financial future is going to look like.
I think it's probably due to just the nature of being in the Defence Force and the roles that I had within the Defence Force as well, which was supporting people and enabling people to be able to be the best and do the best that they could, especially in those SOCOM roles with the dogs. And yeah, it's transitioned straight over into this space as well. But I just do want to roll back around to what you were talking about there, H, in regards to looking after yourself and not being so selfless and just pushing. It is counterintuitive to do that. And that's something I'm very interested to learn more about that aspect, because I do know my wife tells me all the time, slow down, take some time for yourself. But it's not necessarily in our nature for some people to be able to slow down and look after yourself.
I can do that for like 2 hours and then I'm fucking bored. What am I going to do then?
So I think it's something that has to be trained, and I'm interested to learn more about that.
Mate, I love your passion. As we sort of wrap up here, I love the fact that congratulations on an amazing career. You know, and you and I have been out now for 8 or 9 years. Like, you know, that was a long time ago. That was a previous version of ourselves. And I'm sure you will agree, but do you feel as if you're living your best life now as you're older and you've got that perspective and you've got that experience? Yes, we miss the thrill of combat. Yes, we miss the thrill of bloody the mates and the boys and whatever. But I guess all we can do now is try and live our best life as we get a little bit older. You know, we're in our late 40s. But we're going to turn the big 50 soon. And by fuck, you don't act 550. I don't act or feel 50 either. And I'm sure you don't feel 50. But Jesus, I know one thing is that if you and I continue to do on the trajectory that we're on, we're going to continue to make a massive difference to other people's lives and a massive difference to veteran business owners and veteran communities. You're an amazing voice for that whole bloody space, mate. And I just want to congratulate you for everything you've done.
Hey, thanks, Robbie. I really appreciate being on, mate. And I couldn't have summed it up better, mate. To me, and, as you said, then the juice and what I'm doing now is exactly that. And I actually am most fucking excited about all these things I've got going on at the moment. And I think you get to a stage in your life, like I was having jokes about earlier, when we go through basic training and you're like, I got this, and I got this. And I'm thinking like now it's only the last sort of few years, because I've changed, and it's always been a similar theme that I've been going down the last few years, but it's really only now where I'm seeing a lot of hard work, a lot of behind the scenes discussions and meetings and stuff sort of coming into place, and then you see it sort of like drop. But I look forward to being that fucking 80-year-old fucking gangster walking around like fucking like having this. It's, to me, wealth isn't about money. Wealth isn't about physical empire. Wealth to me is having created something that will have a legacy and that I can share with others. It's not about having the biggest fucking yacht. It's about having the biggest party on the yacht. It's about having the most. It's about having the most friends on the yacht. Do you get what I'm saying? Too many people to me are just building something which is just going to lead to a fucking lonely existence. To me, all of what I'm building is, and what gets my buzz on, is to be able to share that, is to be able to give that, is to be able to invite people somewhere where it'll absolutely, change their life and make a difference. Like, to me, that's my fucking juice.
Fucking gold. All right, let's leave it there. Thanks, mate, for coming on. See you later.
See you,
Thanks, everyone, for listening. See ya.
Thank you.